Hey everyone, hope you're all having a great day. We're so excited that you could join us for our top 20% mastermind today with two legendary people, one of whom you've had the opportunity to meet several times now, that you've known for a while, and his name is Shaun Rawls. And the other one, I'm going to let Shaun introduce here in just a second. If you wouldn't mind, please turn those cameras on so that we can see your beautiful faces today, and so that you can participate at the highest level. So with that, Shaun, I'm going to hand it over to you. Take it away, my friend.
Fantastic, Scott. Thank you. I hope you're having a good day, buddy.
I'm having a great one.
I feel like what was the kids show that was like what we would watch on Georgia, like Georgia Public Broadcasting, where like they would say, I see Scott and I see Kate and I see Michelle. What was that show?
I don't know.
I
I
can't
think it
remember what it
was
was.
I think
Romper
it was
room.
Zoom or Romper Room, but
Romper
Romper
room.
Room. I think it
we're
was
dating
Romper Room.
ourselves. Yes,
Yes,
Romper
I think it
Room.
was Romper Room. Wow, I can't believe they let go of such a great show. That was unbelievable. Little did they know that was a precursor to Zoom.
Oh,
Kate, it's good to see you. You guys are in for a treat, and I'm happy to see so many people dialing into this because there are a few people I hold in the highest regard in this industry, and Kate Patulski is one of those people. I met Kate years and years ago at Keller Williams, and she and Ron were pretty much the backbone of the MAPS coaching department that most everybody came to know and love. If you've got your microphone,
Shaun, I accidentally muted you. I'm so sorry.
there
There
we
you
go.
go. You're back.
So anyway, Kate and Ron, if everybody knows Diana Kokoska and all the things that Diana Kokoska was known for under MAPS, I'm going to tell you that nobody would have appreciated Diana Kokoska if it weren't for Kate and Ron and the work that they were doing alongside of her and making that program what it was. I also came to find out that they are two of the smartest real estate coaches I've ever met in my life, and I think by the end of this call today, you're going to understand why I love Kate and Ron so much. We don't have Ron on the call, but we have Kate.
he might jump in.
Okay, good. If he's allowed, he'll pop in.
Yeah.
So Bold started a long, long time ago with Keller Williams, and Kate was one of the masterminds behind Bold, and she came to Atlanta to our group of offices to administer the first Bold. And unfortunately for Kate, she did that because we wouldn't allow anyone else to come do Bold in Atlanta unless it was Kate Patulski. And we got in lots of arguments with Diana and the leaders of Keller Williams because they said we had to do Bold, and we told them that we were agreeing to do Bold. We just would only do it if Kate would do it. So we forced Kate into coming to Atlanta every year to do Bold, and it was amazing. And truthfully, I think that's probably what started our friendship. Kate would be my guess.
I would say it is for sure what started our friendship.
It definitely started the nickname that I gave her, Kate the Great. I call her Kate the Great, and always have, and I think it's well earned. But Kate and Ron now run a coaching company called Your Performance People, and they coach some of my favorite agents on the planet, a lot of whom came out of Atlanta and beyond. But the work that they do is significant and it's impactful. And I think by the time we're done kind of having a little conversation today, I think you're going to understand why. Because I think when you think about coaches, you think about people who hammer numbers and accountability and just kind of stay time on task over time. And I think the word that we had a call with all of our team leaders a few weeks ago, and I just said, I think the word that came to mind first when I was talking about Kate is you're always going to have an elevated conversation when Kate's involved. It's going to be an elevation of mindset. It's going to be an elevation of vocabulary. It's going to be an elevation of perspective. And it's not about how many calls did you make and what did you do. It's really about what are you made of and what are you capable of and how do you know. And that's kind of where I want to go today with Kate. We kind of had a little bit of a conversation around what I wanted today to look like, and I thought it might be interesting for you guys just to kind of hear from her a little bit what her big observations are from a coach and her lifetime of coaching and what she sees as problematic for agents and how do agents sabotage themselves is something I'm very interested in, because Kate does a lot of work, mind work, and linguistic work, and she connects the brain to performance more than anybody I know. And I'm curious, so I'm hoping everyone else is, Kate, what if we were just having a conversation over a cocktail and I said, what do you see that screws people up? I mean, I think the hardest part of leadership for me, I was having this conversation yesterday, the hardest part of leadership for me is seeing potential in people that they aren't achieving, and seeing more in somebody than maybe they see in themselves. And what do you, as a coach, what causes that?
Okay, so I want to start by saying you and I having a cocktail and having a conversation would probably be scary for most people because it might go in a lot of different directions. So my preference, if it's possible, is to see as many people as possible, Scott, because what I'm going to do, Shaun, is play off a lot of visual acuity.
Right.
And so I think the more that everybody on the call can see visual acuity. So what I mean by visual acuity is it might be harder for you guys to see. I use glasses so I can see well. I see some of you do that as well. Visual acuity is how do I read the response of somebody to get an idea of what's happening internally. And I think that's really important in the world we're in right now in real estate. So last night, Shaun sent me a whole bunch of stuff on your market. I've studied your market a lot. I think there's a lot of relevant information that we can cover today. But here's the thing. I see to edify, I've been in this business since 1997. And coaching, I started real estate in 1985. And I went to school for medicine. I did not like it. And then I got into sales, and I figured I'm getting a divorce and I have to raise 2 kids. And so sales would be a really good place for me to make additional money. My sales career in the beginning was work from 9 o'clock to 11, nap from about 12 to 4, and then go and pick up the girls from school. And I say this because I want you to get, I didn't always have it figured out. I did not always spend my time as intentionally as I spend my time now. And when I woke up to the opportunity in real estate, my life changed. And what changed is the way I thought about myself in the business versus what the market told me about the business. So Shaun, the number one thing I see right now with almost every agent in every market is we lack vision. And so here's what I'm going to ask you guys to write down and really look at for yourself. Is not who did your team lead tell you you are, or what did I hear in MREA, or what potentially have I heard from a program that I went to, but really, who are you in this business? So if you look at it, and I don't have a slide for this, but if you can follow my visual, triangle, bottom wide, top is narrow, right? If I stand at the bottom of a triangle and I'm looking at the top of a triangle, and this is my vision, what you're going to notice is the more I focus on the vision, my boundaries narrow. Does that make sense to everybody? It gets more narrow. All right. Most people are living in real estate in an inverted triangle. So what are they doing? I'm standing at the bottom and I'm looking up. And now I have idea, 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 idea. How many of you suffer sometimes from too many ideas besides me? Like it's a thing. It is a real thing. And so we think if I narrow down to a vision, I'm going to eliminate so many options. When the reality is when you narrow down to a vision, you narrow down your boundaries. And when you narrow down to a vision, you start to know what is your yes and what is your no. And in the market we're in right now, we have a fear. We live in this polarity. Polarity is like teeter-totter, right? And remember teeter-totters when you're a kid, the goal is to balance. And if you move too far to one end of the teeter-totter, where's your butt? It's always on the ground. Like you're not launching when your butt's on the ground. And so we live in this polarity of, let's call it freedom and commitment, right? So I'm afraid to commit because if I commit, what am I going to give up? My freedom, right? And so what we do as real estate agents, and I'm not going to say, I work in a lot of C-suite environment in corporate America as well. And it runs rampant with entrepreneurs, is we value ideas, and because we chase an idea, we never narrow down vision. And that's what's happening in the market. So even when I looked at your numbers in the Florida market, it seems like to me, the number of sales in 2023 ran primarily about, but this is every month, under 4,000 units every month. Now, if we thought about under 4,000 units every month and you captured, oh, I don't know, 1% of that market, what is that number? You're
40.
gonna with me, I'm really cool with silence.
40.
It's 40. How many of you could live off 40 transactions a month? Like it's like the market has opportunity, and because we're failing, Shaun, to identify who we are in the market, we don't seize the opportunity. So I think that's the number one thing we struggle with right now is, what is my vision? You're making it up, by the way. Like, what is my vision of myself in this market? Who am I today? And what am I working towards? Right? And yeah, that's a big, if you have a time management issue, you have a vision issue.
I think everybody, in my experience, I think everybody has a time management issue. I mean, it's because I think if we were standing in a class right now and we said, okay, so does everybody know what the most important thing you need to do to make your business grow and succeed this year? My guess is everybody gets 100 on that test. That's my guess.
I know what to do.
Right. So then what happens is, if you know the answer to the test, why don't you perform at 100% level? Like, what happens from knowing the answer to doing the answer, right? And I don't know what that is. I mean, it is a time management issue because, and maybe if you peel that onion back more, that's interesting. Maybe it's more of a vision. You don't see yourself as that person that lives in that answer.
Okay, so everybody has the opportunity here to engage, right?
Yeah, they just got to unmute
They can
themselves to do
engage.
it.
Okay. I'm going to say I'm from New York, so for some people I seem a little intense and frightening, but you will find I am the most I have not a lot of judgment about a lot of anything. I'm very open to almost any idea that you're going to throw out. And I think it's important that you understand that when you engage, you learn at a higher level. Just like when you engage your buyer, they're going to take action sooner. When you engage your seller, they will act sooner. And I will cover why that happens. I want you to look at, so Shaun, when we talk about this, I know you as a leader. I know you as a husband. I know you as a father, as an owner of a pet. How many of you are a parent? You have a child, or you own a pet, or you have a spouse? All right, let's think about this. Has there been a day in 2024 when you did the thing for the child, the pet, the spouse, even though you didn't feel like it?
Oh, yeah.
Why?
Because it got in the way of my business.
Okay, so say more about that, Diane.
Well, like if I'm sitting here working and then my son comes in the kitchen and starts talking to me, you know, I'm actually inclined to say, I'll talk to you, you know, at 12 o'clock, but my heartstrings are pulled and I stop what I'm doing and I start talking to him, and the, you know, the conversation that's 5 minutes leads to 30 minutes. And then from there, the phone rings and then the text messages come in, and then the task that I was originally working on got totally put on the back burner.
I hear you. So is it fair to say that I have this idea of who I am as a mom, and sometimes the idea of who I am as a mother overrides the idea of who I am as a real estate agent?
Okay, I'm sorry. Can you repeat that?
Is it fair to say that the idea that you have, the vision that you have of yourself as a mother, and the impact that you're going to have on your child overrides the idea that you have of yourself as a real estate agent and the impact that you're going to have on the consumer?
I'd have to say yes, but I feel like that's a trick question.
No
In the
trick.
moment, I would say absolutely not a trick question.
Yeah, like
Well, how I'm perceived by my children is very important to me. So, you know, doing what I'm doing. So yeah, by saying I will speak to you at 12 o'clock shows them I'm in control of my time.
All right, so I want everybody to do this, so it's going to be a lot easier for you. Draw two circles, one right next to each other. Not huge, but like big enough that you can draw something in it. And then Scott, what I'm going to ask you to do is the circle on the left, put a smiley face in it. And then the circle on the right, put a heart inside the circle. Okay, there are two distinct parts of ourselves. One is our head, which is represented by the smiley face, and the other one, our heart, right? Or our soul, which is represented from the heart. And those very two distinct parts, there's a saying, who says it, but they say, the longest journey you'll ever have is the distance between your heart and your head.
Ooh, that's
Can
good.
we make this agreement that the head part of me is just programming? That's all it is. It's stories I have about myself and ideas I have about myself, and it's information that I've been fed about who I am. Can everybody agree to that? Like, that's what your head is,
Yes.
right? Can we make an agreement that our heart is really more than that, or our soul is that feeling that you get every once in a while, and some maybe more than others, that I'm meant to do bigger things in the world? Like there is a part of me that I just know that I'm meant to do something big in the world. In order for us to have the best experience together today, remember that everything that Shaun and I will ever say is speaking to you from your soul. And what we're challenging is your head and the idea that you have about yourself. Can everybody accept that as the truth? Like that's when your life starts to change, is we are fed, you, me, from the time that we are born, ideas about who we are and who we're not, what's right and what's not right, what is acceptable in society and what's not acceptable in society, how you should build your business and how you shouldn't build your business. And it becomes our brain. So I do have a strong background in neuroscience, just so you guys know. So in neuroscience specifically, and I do work in neurosurgery, but in organizational performance. So how do we understand how we think in order to influence change in our own behavior? And then the level up is, how do I take the world I live in today and understand how the consumer thinks to influence them to make a decision to move forward in their life? Fair enough? So here's your brain. It is a sponge. It has no valuation of good or bad or right or wrong or wanted, unwanted. No valuation. Now you think it does, but it really doesn't. Anything you expose it to, it will soak up, and when you squeeze it, that's what's going to come out, right? And so for most of us, the thing that stops us in even Shaun, gaining clarity about our vision is we are inundated with so much data in the world from social media and Instagram and TikTok and Facebook and programs that we don't even know our own voice. We just have this idea of who we're supposed to be based on what everybody else tells us. How many of you ever feel like that? Like, I am always in a dance of what am I supposed to be doing? How am I supposed to be doing it? What should I be doing? Right. And so what we're working at, Diane, right now is getting to the heart of really who you are. What is your voice? What is it that you do in the market that nobody else can do it the way you do it, right? That is the vision that you have for yourself. And Shaun, when you go back and say, if we know what to do, because we all know what to do, right? We do. We know what to do, then why don't we do it? The reason we don't do it is because we actually do not see ourselves doing it.
Wow.
But why do you thrive as a parent? Because you have a very clear idea of yourself as a parent, and that drives all of your behavior. Why do some of us, I have clients and one of our coaches that cooks food for their dog, probably better than for their spouse, and feeds their dog that food because they pride themselves in being that type of pet owner. So they'll be inconvenienced. But we don't do that when we get into real estate. So most of you, how many of you started as like I did as an individual agent? Like I had no support. It was just me and me. Okay. So you answered your phone. Okay. Now I'm going to date myself. I answered my phone. I used to look through the MLS book for properties that came on the market. I sent my own faxes over. I responded to my own faxes. I negotiated my own, I did it all. Right. And so when we get in this business called real estate, we identify with ourselves as somebody that does all things. And most of us never re-identify as something different than that. And that's why we know the things, but we don't do the things.
But don't you think that's interesting? That's a good point, because don't you think on some level, when you struck a nerve with me, because I think the idea of I do everything really well makes me feel important because I can do so much more than other people can do. And then the idea of saying, no, 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 the importance and the success is in doing less, not more. It's such a do fewer things, do more important things, and don't do the ancillary, like simplify and get that narrow focus you're talking about. And we tend to, you're right, it's an inverted triangle. We're fine. I don't know that you meant it that way, but visually I get that, and that we find importance in the expanse of our talents, in our interests, in our energies, instead of finding it in a much smaller, more strategic area of it.
And Shaun, to add to that, but being vulnerable for a second, that's something you and Jerry have really helped me to realize, is that I don't need to do everything. I need to focus on my strengths and do the right things and surround myself with amazing people.
That's right.
Other things.
Is everybody open to the word God? Is it offensive to anybody? Okay, so I had this coaching call yesterday, Shaun, with somebody that has been living in the I do it all, right? Like I am woman, I do it all. And they're very Christian based. And I said to them, so Jesus had disciples. And they're like, yeah, he did. And I'm like, I wonder why. And they're like, they spread the word of God. And I said, but this is Jesus. And he needed disciples to spread the word of God. Like, it is the exact same thing. Like Gary says that, right? If you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go with other people. And so there's a big shift right now that has happened in the market. So number one is identity. If you're not clear on your identity, I can send it to Shaun and Shaun can send it to you. I can give you a little thing to create your vision. Like, what really is my vision? Once you know what your vision is, everything else starts to narrow, because your vision then starts to identify who is my who. right? So who is your who? Like, as a real estate agent, who is my who? Like, who is my buyer? Who is my seller? Who is the ideal player for my team, right? The stronger you get, so imagine this, like this is a signal and the signal is off the top of my head. The stronger my signal is, the only thing that can happen is I'm going to drive to this signal exactly what my energy is or what I'm thinking about. But if I'm not sure, I'm going to create a lot of stuff that doesn't make a lot of sense. And then what we do as human beings is we convince ourselves we're not good at something. It's not that you're not good at it. You're just missing, I need to strengthen my signal. So knowing who is your who. Scott, I'll say this. We get people all the time that will send things to me and say, hey, we'd like to work with your organization. And we have a process. And so we say, you know, here's what you do to get in an exploration call. We're not magicians. We live in a world where we do something with somebody, not to somebody. And so if somebody's not willing to invest and co-create and having a bigger life, because that's what coaching is, it's a co-creation process. Just like marriage, by the way, they're probably not our client, and we're really clear they're not our client. But when I sold real estate, how many times did I take a listing of an unmotivated seller? A lot. Work with a buyer that was going to buy, but we're 18 months later, but they still haven't bought. A lot. Because I wasn't clear on who I was in the business. So every time you work with somebody that is not your who, you open up invitation for that next person just like that to come to you.
I agree with that.
How do you change it? You just decide, right? My spouse, husband, who Shaun knows as well, and honestly, a very brilliant man. I love the game of sales. Y'all, if I could fly to your market and go on a listing appointment with you, that would be the highlight of my day. If I could sit with you and lead generate, that would be my day. If I could teach you how to convert, I love the game. I think it is the best business ever. My husband would be fine with never working with a salesperson again. He loves the game of business, of growth, of positioning to sell, of exit strategies. Make sense to everybody? So he's very clear on who he works with and who he doesn't work with. The minute he got clear, all the opportunities started coming his way. Why? Only because he got really clear and he's no longer a match for somebody that's not in his wheelhouse. So these are the only three things you need for vision. Vision is always made up of three things. What do I do? Who do I do it for? And the last one, so I can be perceived as. So what do I do? Who do I do it for? So I can be perceived as. So it can be perceived as, the easiest way for you to access that is to stop for a moment and think about, what are the things I want people to say about me? Do you want them to think you're strategic? Do you want them to think you're influential, knowledgeable, a strong negotiator, right? Like, how you want to be perceived already identifies what you value in life. And that's all you need to do. So I am whatever, I am a strategic real estate agent working the blank market, positioning people to make smart money moves in real estate. There's a vision statement. Easy. If you start getting into how you do it, now you're getting into mission and not vision.
Right.
But if you stop, Shaun, and you thought about this, so I worked with somebody yesterday and they have this vision of themselves to be committed to do the right thing every time. And I said, okay, what is the right thing? And they said, well, it's making sure people know when there's market opportunity. So I'm going to ask you guys to stop for a moment. market opportunity, and I think I know what it is, but what do you think it is right now in Florida? What is your market opportunity in Florida?
I think everything's an opportunity. Every person I meet's an opportunity. Like, I think every relationship is an opportunity.
Okay,
And
so
how
what I'm gonna ask you to
defined
do,
just,
Diane, if you're open to it, start narrowing down. This is a really good place for us
it's
to
definitely a sell. I feel like we're getting back into selling, like listings, because the seasonality of the springtime, people making decisions for schools. You're not in this area. So I live in a suburban area with schools that people want to be a part of the school system. So yeah, I feel like this is becoming more of a seller's market, but that translates into a buyer's market.
Okay, so if we looked at it and we put that, what you guys are gonna notice with me, and I think it's because for the women on the phone, I'm female, and in the beginning of my career, I had to do a lot of let me prove that I know something. And so what gave me a lot of proof was data. What led me to studying in neuroscience, besides coming from the medical field, was if I could use data, I could lean on the data and that could help me build a presence in a room versus somebody saying, okay, she's like 30 some years old. What does she know? Right? How would we know right now in your real estate market, regardless? So I'm in Austin, Texas. How would you know right now that a seller has a window right now of opportunity that they may not have in 30 days? How would we know that?
By asking the right question.
It could be asking the right questions. If you guys went back, I don't know exactly where that slide was. If you went back and we looked at in your specific market, and we looked at from, let's say February 15 to the end of March, and we looked at listings coming on market from 2023. From that period, do you think listings stabilized or did they increase?
They increased.
Like it's very typical of a spring market. I see it here in Austin, right? That over from mid-February to the end of March, inventory tends to increase. All right. For a seller, you're a seller. What does that mean if inventory is increasing?
Yeah, you need to attack the market now before the added increase in inventory. More competition means less, less sales price.
Yeah, so what we're really saying is the longer you wait, the more inventory we see on the market, the more we start to jeopardize your equity position. Right? And like you guys know that. And so Diane, if you look at the market and you think that's what I own right now, and like this young woman, I said, so what is the market opportunity? She said, well, I think that somebody that's going to sell has a bit more equity today than they're going to have 2 or 3 weeks from now. And I said, okay, fair enough. Who do you know that needs to know that? Like, because if that's who you are and that's who you're committed to, is I'm going to go out and I'm going to position people to actually win in the market. And Shaun, that's why because we don't get really attached to why do we do what we do.
There was a presentation by the head of Georgia Tech. I'm in Atlanta, and Georgia Tech, which is where I went to school, they have one of the top entrepreneurial schools in the country. And the guy who heads that up gave a presentation a couple of years ago, and he said, here's what we do. We teach people how to find a hole in the world and go fill it. That's what we do. And that's what any entrepreneur, any salesperson, anybody that runs a company, your job is to know where the holes are in your world for people, your customers, your clients, and go fill them. And so the other way to say that is we're problem solvers. So if you look at it and go, if I see myself as a problem solver, I'm a good decision maker and I'm a good problem solver. All I have to do is figure out what problems people are having or they're going to have or they're worried about or that are keeping them up at night or that are making them decide not to sell their house when maybe they should because they don't have the right information or the person to help them. Who out there might have a problem that I could let them know that they have a problem that I can solve, or that I can just say, if you've got this problem, I can solve it, or plant the idea that, have you even thought about whether or not you have a problem?
Okay, so you said the most important thing was plant the idea. Like that is so important, is plant the idea. A long time ago, so for a hot minute, like it was not a long time, y'all. I think it was like 5 years. I was a bold coach. And if you ever were around when Diana Kokoska was around, my style was similar to hers. And so if she couldn't do a room, she'd ask me to go do a room because we were very similar in our style. And I was doing, I had done a bold in New Jersey. I took the red eye and I flew to someplace in California, and I was doing a bold in like the Marina Del Rey area. And when I flew home back to my home market, I sat next to a man on a plane, and I swore, I'm not going to talk to this man. I'm exhausted. I'm not going to talk to him. But I'm also a little on the friendly side. And I said, what do you do? And he says, I chase chaos. Spoke all the way from LA, all the way to Washington, DC, talking about his one thing was look in the world where there's chaos and chase it. Because when you can find chaos, you can solve the chaos. And he said, and that's my whole job, is I chase chaos. I wrote a blog about it, like way back in the day. I wish I could find it because I was so impacted by that idea of if you can see a problem. So let's talk about a neuro perspective, a negative brain bias. Do you know the term? Have you ever heard it? Thumbs up if yes, and if you haven't, it's okay. Like, I only know it because I hear it, negative brain bias. So as humans, we operate from negative brain bias. Negative brain bias is stimulated from the brain stem, which is the instinctive fight or flight response. You have no control over it. It's why during COVID, we were rushing to get toilet paper, which really made no sense. That's negative brain bias. So what's fascinating, and this is another like maybe martini conversation, but what's really fascinating is how our brains have evolved as a collective since COVID. Like this is where you really have to stop and say, what is that energy in the world that my brain seems different and separate from your brains, but all brains evolved during COVID. And so as a result of COVID, we have actually magnified negative brain bias. So what does that mean? We have overactive and overstimulated brain stems, and we gather more negative data than positive data. And we use the negative data to drive our decisions. So let's do a little check-in. How many of you in the last, let's call it 2 years, thought about making a big purchase and were really focused on the big purchase, but then you got further away from it and you decided not to because it just didn't seem like a really good idea to make the big purchase? That's negative brain bias. So if you, I'm going to use a visual. I don't know if you can see this, but you see this bottle?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's not beer, it was like seltzer water. But anyways, I don't know why I feel like I need to explain that I'm not drinking right now, but
We'd all think more of you if you were, Kate.
I'm like, oh my God, I hope they don't think I'm drinking here. All right, so in your brain, it is not this size. I want you to imagine this is really little. So this is like the size of, say, an almond, all right? This part of your brain is midbrain. So if I had it on the side of my head, it would be located midbrain. It's your amygdala. And what happens is when the consumer, you process data, you run data through the limbic system of the brain, which is the amygdala. But every time you hold on to a thought or an idea, it's like water filling this vessel. If the water fills the vessel and it blocks the neck of the bottle, which is the nerve that goes to the frontal cortex, a buyer and seller cannot decide. A recruit cannot decide. Your kids cannot decide. Your spouse cannot decide. It is impossible to decide. In real estate sales today, and this is why I love the game, the way you use language adds pressure to the amygdala or it takes pressure off. And the person that's winning the game is the person that understands, how do I take the pressure off the amygdala? So I'm going to give you a trick, and it's easy. All right. The more you talk, the more pressure you put on the amygdala. So my husband and I right now are putting our house on the market, and we're interviewing real estate agents, which, if I'm being honest, sometimes makes me want to, like, my head explode, right? And so we're interviewing. I have 2 interviews this afternoon. We're interviewing real estate agents. And this is top talent, y'all, in the system. Do you think they've asked me a lot of questions?
I would hope.
Do you think anybody pre-qualified this appointment? Mm-mm. Do you think when people come, they're talking at me?
Based upon that, yes.
Okay, so I just want you to look at, like, this is, and these are very qualified people, but what we're doing is we're using old sales techniques when we're living in a different world. For most of you, all right, so we used to own a large mortgage operation too, and I love that game, like the finance game. And so if you follow the Fed fund rate, you already know that, you know, there's 2 times that it's been incredibly low, one after the financial crisis and one after the health crisis. But there was external stimuli that drove down our interest rates. And if you're waiting for that to happen again, you're jeopardizing another part of your life, because you can't collect a lot of interest if interest rates, if the fund rate is, you know, 0.20 or 0%, you just can't, right? And so for a long time, we've been living in the real estate world, convincing ourselves we're really good salespeople, when the reality was we had really good economic conditions and people were making decisions based more on positive data than negative data. And that's the biggest thing that's changed. So you got this old school Shaun and Scott that are using old sales methods, and they haven't created new sales methods. So how you take pressure off the amygdala is you ask open-ended questions. That's it. It's not hard. The minute that somebody looks like they're glazing over, ask them, why are we meeting? What's your priority? Talk to me about how you feel your price is an advantage to you. Stop talking. Just ask them. You can't influence something you don't understand. That's the new game of sales right now. I've got to get out of talking at. If you're calling your database, how many of you ever called your database and said, I'm just calling to let you know, and then you filled in all the blanks? Oh my God, I have for sure, right? And it used to work well. It doesn't now. If I don't do that, what's an open-ended question I could ask anybody in my database?
Just checking in to see how you think the market's doing or how the value of your home is these days.
Yeah, talk to me about your thoughts around the market. Do you see how open-ended that is? We just did a program in January, Shaun, and I didn't pull all the research out for this, but there was an enormous amount of research we did on external data and how it was driving a lot of decisions. And whether you guys realize it or not, I don't. But the majority of the world still watches the news. And I think it was like 84% of people access news via social media, Facebook, CNN, but they do it several times during the course of the day. Now, the news creates a compelling narrative. And then the compelling narrative creates a self-fulfilling prophecy. Now tell me what that means when it comes to real estate over the last year. What was the headlines in the news last year around real estate?
Interest rates.
Interest rates and sales are down.
Interest rates, sales are down. Did they say run out and buy a house?
No.
Your last one?
Did they tell you maybe you should wait? Right? Like, are the markets crashing? Interest rates are out of control, high interest rates, the largest interest rate we've had in blank. And so the media created the compelling narrative. Now, I say a lot of things that could ruffle feathers, but it's because I want to challenge your thinking so you can live from your heart. Can everybody accept that as a truth? Like, if I'm irritating you, I'm happy because it means we're getting out of that frame of thinking that's stopping us from being as good as we can be in the market. I live in Austin. I was on the market for 2 weeks in January. We have a thing in Austin called the Austin Luxury Network System. It operates outside of the MLS, so you're not accumulating days on market. Okay. So my thought was, if somebody's going to come into the Austin market and they're going to relocate. So like Diane was saying, maybe they're coming in for the school district. I live in the private school system district of Austin, or they're relocating with a corporation. We'll know who those people are because they'll probably go through the Austin Luxury Network. I won't accumulate days on market. We don't sell, Scott. I'll put it back on the spring. And so we thought about our strategy. I didn't ask the data. And when I asked the data is when I was ready to come off the market. My real estate agent, who was a Keller Williams agent, and God bless, she drove qualified traffic into the property. But when she called real estate agents to talk to them about her house, they would tell her, it's the holidays. We're not really pushing our buyers in the market right now.
What? That's
This is
unacceptable.
very common here. 8% of the houses on the ALN actually sell. This is the top luxury talent in the Austin market. Most of them have to go on the open market. The mistake I made, Shaun, is I overestimated that agents were working in the market to generate buyer activity, to generate seller activity. But what happened? The agent bought into the narrative of the news that drove the conversation between agents, which then created a self-fulfilling prophecy. So if I look at real estate right now, y'all, and I think, what is a problem we have? We're not creating a compelling narrative to the consumer out in the market. And we're overestimating that they're going to come to these decisions on their own, and they're going to come to us. And guess what?
You know, what's interesting about the stats that you've got, and in fact, Jerry and I just did our first stats presentation together in 10 years yesterday. And a lot of people don't realize that those stats that you enjoy are stats that Jerry and I created in 2008 when the market shifted. But what I love about those stats is it shows you that there's always a great market for great homes at a great price. And we look back, you can look at those charts in there that go back to 2008, and you can see that there's always a number of red bars of sales, regardless whether we had 30,000 listings or 4,000 listings. There's always properties that are moving. And if you're an agent, if you're not realizing that all I have to do is live in the best, if I'm committed to living in the best categories and having the best clients and having the best conversations and having the best listings and the best buyers, I don't really care what the world's doing. There's enough, like you said, that 1%, that 40 transactions, there's enough transactions.
It's enough.
Yeah, there's plenty out there in any market for me to do well. It's my mindset and my activities and the alignment between the two. If they're not in alignment, I'm not performing.
Look, it is always, so when you said, hey, let's talk about challenges. Here's what I wrote: lack of vision, number one, right? Who am I? Not who does somebody else think I am, but really who am I? I had texted Shaun earlier today, And the one thing I enjoy about getting older is I have less doubt about who I am and what I can contribute to the people that are around me, right? Lack of vision, failure to create a compelling narrative. So think about this for a minute. When interest rates are up, credit card rates are up. The majority of the consumers have credit card debt. I think sometimes we make an assumption that if somebody sells a house, they use their equity to buy another house.
Mhm.
But here's the thing. I have positioned people that have sold their house, bought another house, used the equity to pay off the credit card debt, and are living less expensively than they were before, even with an increase of interest rates.
Well,
But
here's another one. Here's another one yesterday. Somebody was in problem solving, figured out the client realized it's not the right time to sell. We know we want to move and we know where we want to go, but we're 3 years away. But here's what we know: prices keep going up and up and up and up. The hell with interest rates. By the time 3 years gets here, it's going to be really expensive. So together, the problem they solved was, they went and bought the house they want to live in 3 years, and they're renting it out for profit for the next 3 years while living in their house. They'll catch their equity in 3 years on this property, but they had the means and the ability to do that. That's an outside the box thinking, and that's where problem solving for me comes in. You don't have to do things the way. In fact, the problem is most people are thinking A plus B equals C all the time. That gets boring and old, and it constipates a lot of transactions and markets in the world.
And that requires listening. It requires getting out of my world and what I think to what are you thinking? Like, let's put our heads together. Let's talk about it out loud. What are the thoughts that have been rolling around in your head? So I have my youngest daughter and her husband have a second home in West Hollywood. And they're in the same boat. They bought this house in West Hollywood. It's like 900 square feet. I don't even understand that whole thing, but they bought this house and now they're ready to sell the house because they realize it's small, even though they're not there all the time. And what's driving their decision is that exact same thing, is that the prices continue to escalate. So
you can't solve that problem if you're not having a conversation. If you're doing what you talked about earlier and you're just presenting and you have a standard sheet of questions, you would miss that solution entirely because you're not having a conversation. You're having a presentation, and that's a completely different issue.
Completely different. All right, women, how many of you have a hairstylist? Like you go and you get highlights or lowlights or color? All right. When you leave, do they always ask you to set your next appointment? They always ask you. Like, you want to get your next appointment on the calendar. Let's get your next appointment on the calendar. If I called you up today and I said to you, hey, listen, Kristen, I don't know when it was last. My gut's telling me it makes sense for you and I to start looking at your equity position. Can I set up some time and we'll jump on a Zoom together? How many times should I be looking at Kristen's equity throughout the course of a year?
Probably each quarter.
Probably. If you work with a financial person, are they looking at your finance? This elevates who we are, because when I see myself as a partner in your life to position you to make better and more strategic movement in real estate, it will drive my action. I hear all the time, though, somebody will say to me, I'm a pretty practical thinker, and they'll say, I've made all the calls to my database and I'm like exhausting. Like, where am I going? I'm like, your database is 459, but I show 179 outbound. We really track data in our organization. I show 179 and they're like, well, I mean, and I'm like, get out of, when we have anxiety is always because attention is on you. Right? So notice when I'm anxious, when I get fearful, it's because attention's on you. But if you take the spotlight, turn it off you and put it on to the person that you're talking to, your anxiety will dissipate. It won't even be there, right? What if this one conversation helps them make a decision that changes the course of their life? And what if I'm the catalyst for that? And that's why I show up. And that's why we're going to talk again in a quarter. And that's why I'm going to do lead follow-up. Your lead follow-up right now, guys, because we have more negative brain bias. We used to say, let's say I had a lead and the lead told me, what is this? It's February, March, April. Let's say they said they were going to buy in the spring. Spring in Austin is different, but spring in New York would be like around May. So in February, they're going to buy in May, right? When will we usually follow up with them? If it's February 14 and they're thinking about getting into the market in the beginning of May.
Probably April.
Probably April, right? We probably go 30 days before. When do you want to follow up with them now?
March.
2 weeks.
Next week. And that's hard for people.
But let me tell you why that's important. And this has been, just to sing back up to this, Kate, the thing, I've been harping on two things lately, and I'll get in the other one in a second. But this one is, I think this is the year where there are going to be so many more transactions that are done that fall through your fingers. People in your database that you should have been the agent for, that did it with other people because you weren't there when they met the kid's parents' friend who's a realtor and at the practice, and they ended up just going and looking at a house unexpectedly and buying a house. I think there's going to be a lot of those transactions because exactly what you're saying. If they're thinking, I'm probably going to get ready in May, that means they're already thinking they're going to go. That means if the right opportunity comes up between tomorrow and May, you're going to lose a transaction. So if you've got any indication that there's something on the brain, I don't care how far out it is, if it's on the brain, it's at play tomorrow if the right opportunity comes up, because they're already thinking about it. You can't be lazy in that and wait until their time frame is a time frame of convenience. Opportunity doesn't pay any attention to convenience. Opportunity presents itself when it's ready, and you better figure out how to get uncomfortable with comfortable and make a move. And I think you're dead on. If somebody says something down the road, tomorrow is when you start looking.
Okay, so let's get practical. So what do you want to look at every day? And I mean every darn day when you wake up. You want to go into your MLS and you want to look at how many new houses came on the market and how many went pending every day. Every single solitary day. It's the first thing I would do if I was in active sales right now. How many went active? How many went under contract? Because then I can call up Scott and say, hey, listen, I know that you and I just spoke 2 days ago, and I know in the conversation you were thinking about waiting till May. I have noticed an increase in the number of contracts in our market. And what that tells me is it might cost you more money moving forward. Do you know what I mean by that? Notice I'm going to ask him, does he understand what I mean? Because I want him to talk. I don't want to talk. Right? Or I have a seller. And again, there's a saying in the behavioral sciences that if you want to know what somebody believes, just watch what they do. So when I see an agent go on a listing appointment, and I work with some big teams, and they're waiting to onboard the listing, and it's going to take them 45 days to onboard the listing. Could the market change in 45 days?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Oh my God. And could we now have to reprice the property?
Yes.
All right. So remember, I've been in the business a long time. So I have been through the financial crisis. I have been through 9/11. These were all things that we did. Oh my God. I coached Doris Carlin's team when there was the tornado in Joplin. So one day real estate looked one way and the next day it looked the next day. You don't know what's going to happen in the world. So my theory is always, when is the best time to list your house? Right now. When is the best time to buy a house? Right now.
5 years ago.
It's just always right now. This is the best time. And so that 45 days to me, and I use language a lot to say to somebody. So I might say to Shaun, I want you to pay attention to everything I do and everything I say, because I'm demonstrating to you how I work in the market. And if I'm not talking to you about moving forward, I'm not talking to the potential buyer about making an offer on your house. And so everything I do is just demonstrating what I'm going to be doing on the other side. So I looked at the market, and I'm noticing right now that inventory has increased over last week. Let's just do a strategic evaluation. What does more inventory in the market mean to you as a seller? But Shaun and I are partners. We're in a strategic relationship to create an outcome. I owe it to him to have that conversation. I'm not pushing him, but I'm giving him the opportunity so he knows we got to look at what's more important to you, your equity position or your convenience of time, because they may not line up together. Right. And so your follow-up right now for the people I'm coaching, Shaun, I tell them your follow-up has to be at least right now an hour, maybe 90 minutes every day, because you're following up with people more often. The bigger distance between you and your client or your nurturer or your lead, the more likely they will become somebody else's.
And don't you think if you go back to the beginning of this meeting where you talked about the teeter-totter, I think you just hit on another teeter-totter in a visual sense, in that we have to assume that a seller particularly, and buyers as well, but sellers predominantly, they've got their seat on the teeter-totter. They've got their what they're putting their flag. It's convenience, and they want to do it when they want to do it. And it's kind of that freedom thing you also talked about, right? So we have to show up with an alternate weight to test the validity of their assumptions or their opinions or their beliefs in the moment. And if we don't show up with the appropriate weight, then they'll always win. And it's not win in a salesy way. I think we have a responsibility. For me, I don't care what decision you make. I just want to know that you're making the right decision based on the right information. And my job is to present you with the right information so that the decision you make, you and I both are comfortable with the reason you made it. If you can buy, you can not buy, you can sell, you cannot sell. That's not my interest. My interest is the decision you make about that. If it's based on information I'm providing as your partner, I don't want to leave any stone unturned, and I want to make sure you understand the weight that's involved in all the circumstances, not just the ones that seem convenient to you.
Look, years ago, I don't know, what year was it that you and Jerry were here? We're in San Antonio.
It's probably been 10 years now. Well, I mean, maybe not 8,
Maybe not 10. Maybe not 10. But we were at dinner, and you had just had surgery on your face.
Oh, the skin cancer.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, y'all, I've had a bunch of skin cancer. And so I'm like, oh, I got this kind of spot on my nose, and I should probably go get it checked. And sure enough, I got it checked, and sure enough, I had melanoma. And like, so I had a scar running all the way down the side of my face. I model our business after other professions because I come from the medical community. So if you've ever been to a doctor tells you or gives you advice on a plan to benefit your health. They don't really think about, is it a convenient time for you to do it, right? They will say to you, here is my recommendation. So I just went in last week and I had to have this procedure done, and I'm still kind of healing from the procedure. There was never a moment that she said, how do you feel about the plan? Never. She just was like, well, we are proactive or we deal with Mo's. Proactive, Mo's. Mo's is a surgery. And I'm like, I could do it at 7 in the morning. I'll push back my first coaching call to 11.
I used to do something similar where I'd say, so let's say you go into your doctor and you go in for tests and you're so excited because you're leaving for Italy tomorrow morning and it's the trip of a lifetime. It's the trip you and your spouse have been waiting for forever. You've saved all your money, your tickets are purchased, you're going tomorrow. This is the last thing. Getting the doctor, doing my thing, and I'm off, right? And they do their thing and they go in and they go back and they look at it and they look at it and they go, oh my God, she has cancer. And they're torn because you're leaving tomorrow on this trip that you've waited your entire lifetime for, but yet they see cancer and they have to tell you that they have to do this and they need to, you can't go to Italy. Do they say, you know what, let's wait till she gets back, let's let her have a great trip? Or are they going to say, you know what, I hate to tell you this, but this is something you have to know. A good doctor is not going to care about your excitement about your trip. They're going to make sure your health is a primary concern and it trumps everything.
Right.
Right. And that's what it is.
Look, it is the exact same thing. When I looked at those stats that you guys gave, they're like the fail rate in the market when you go to list a house. What was it like?
40-something%.
60% actually sell.
Yeah.
Because 40% fail. Now,
40%.
I'm from New York, so how many of you are listing agents? If you have to scrub this afterwards, Scott, and say, don't do what she just said, just clean it up afterwards. Okay. I'm from New York. You can't cross a sign, but here's the reality. There are still in your market 35% of houses that are selling right away, and they're selling right away because somebody priced them right, right? And they realize that price is what's going to drive somebody into the property, right? We've got to start distinguishing the list price is not the sales price. The list price is the strategy that we're using to drive traffic into the property. You could have a great house. We don't get anybody in the door. We're not going to get an offer. The sales price is only something you're going to agree to, right? If you know your stats and you know that you're in the 35% that are selling houses within that 30-day frame, consider going back to your database and calling your database and just saying to your database, so listen, the reason I'm calling today is I'm not sure if you've been following the market. Have you noticed inventory in the market that's not selling? Again, I want to engage them, so I want them to talk. And then I'll say, you know, I just was researching the market, and when a house goes on the market here, over 40% of them don't sell. Now, the truth is, I'm getting them sold in less than 30 days. If there's anybody in your world right now that has their house on the market and it's been on the market for longer than 30 days and it's not selling, have them call me. That's what I do. I specialize in houses that sometimes don't sell the first time around. We lived in a market where average days on market when we were actively selling, and we sold well over 100 units, 142 a year, back in the day when you had to do all the other things to make, you know, like find the inventory, and it was just two of us. And average days on market exceeded 90 days. Now think about that. If houses are 90 days on market, how do you ensure that yours is one of the houses that's being seen?
Price.
Price is a big one.
How you're marketing it.
How you're marketing it, how you're driving traffic to it, what does your plan look like? There's this thing I think we underestimate, right? So yes, we would have a plan, but once we would sell something, how we got our inventory is people would just tell other people, but I think you probably need to call them because your house isn't selling. Now, I can't cross the line, but they can certainly reach out to me, right? And I knew we could sell a house. How did we sell? We created a network system of the buyers' agents that worked the market, that were heavily working the market. And we created a relationship so they wanted to do business with us. I'm not necessarily sure we're taking that approach in our markets anymore, where we've created these circles or these networks of agents. So if you look at a buyer's agent in your market, do you guys often pull data to know who's selling property in the market. Why would that be important for me to know in my market who's selling property? Not who's.
That you can call on, right? Anytime, anytime you're doing your market analysis, I always like to see what agents are doing business in those markets. And then you could just make a call like, hey, I've got a property that's coming to market. Maybe you have a client that may be interested.
Yep, perfect, right? That's a really good way to build, right? We're agents that work buyers. Where do we find those people most of the time?
Open houses.
Houses.
Ah, open houses. Okay. And if you've ever done an open house, you're kind of stuck there until the open house is over, right? And sometimes there's not a lot of activity at an open house. Where do you think Ron and I recruited? Open houses, because where are they going? They might avoid us all week, but where are they going to go? We're going to go to the open house, right? We're going to talk to them during the open house. And our only goal is, how do we create a relationship with Michael to the degree that he sees value being in relationship with us and his life becomes better as a result of it? So we go to the open house, we'd meet him, we'd talk to him. We typically would bring you some food because you're usually there and hungry. And then we'd always ask you a question. Talk to me about a buyer that you have right now that you're really struggling to find property for. Here's what I'm gonna do. This is law of reciprocity. I'm gonna go back on Monday and I'm gonna work anyways. And you've been so gracious to let us see the house. I'm gonna call around the neighborhoods that your buyers are looking in, and I'm going to see what I can do to uncover some inventory for you. Will you be around Monday afternoon so I can check in with you? No, I'm going to lead generate anyways. And my lead generation is going to become a lot stronger if I call you on the phone, Jenny, and I say, hey, listen, we're working a buyer in your neighborhood. I know you guys haven't been in your house a long time. I'm just wondering if you thought at all about making a move. Do you know anybody in the neighborhood that's been thinking about making a move? Right? Then I'm going to call Michael back and I'm going to say, hey, listen, I've talked to about 40 people today. Now I've got a couple of people I'm going to follow up with. I just want to make sure that you and I are on the same page, that I'm doing the work I told you I would do. If I did that and I created 30 agents that I had relationships with that were working buyers in the market, would I have traffic in my listings?
Absolutely.
And then my listings would sell. And when your listings sell, that's your best advertisement. And then I use my listing that sells to pick up my next listing. It's just, what is the strategy that I'm going to use? And we've come out of a market, and some of you guys will remember it, that agents just didn't even call each other back.
That's right.
Like, y'all just weren't the nicest people to one another that were selling real estate. How many of you had that experience? You're like, these agents are just not nice people at all. Be the nice person, offer to help somebody, and then tell them, listen, I have a couple ideas. I'm happy to, put you in this group that sometimes I send out some tips that might help you in your own business. Are you interested? So now when I have a listing, I got Michael and 30 other people that, if nothing else, I ask them, can you stop by the property, Kristen? Will you take a look at it? Give me your honest feedback on price. I mean, I really value your perspective. That's all we're doing, guys, in the market right now. Is what artificial intelligence cannot take away from you is your connections to people. Be the person connected to more people, and you'll have more business. When we're interviewing agents, one of the questions, Shaun, I'm asking is, how I have a product called a house, and it's a beautiful house. And it's one of the only ones in this neighborhood that you don't have to do anything to. And you have the audience. How are you working the audience to get them in my house? That's all I want to know.
What's been the most interesting answer you've heard?
Most people are afraid when they're at these listing appointments because I don't think they think I'm going to ask those questions. But I'm like, that's all I want to know, because if we look at you right now, we're saying that 40% of the listings fail. So that means the MLS is not selling my house. Who's selling my house is the agent's efforts. The
Hey,
agent
Kate,
strategy. Yeah.
I'd love to come to your market and sell your home for you.
I have a few people that have offered to come from Atlanta and sell my house for me.
Yeah.
I'm really crossing my fingers that these next two interviews, but that's where I think we get a lot of power is there's a guy that's on the luxury circuit. And you guys probably know him. I'm not going to mention who it is. And he goes around and he talks to people about the luxury market. And he says luxury sellers just want somebody to talk to them that cares about them. I don't feel that way at all.
That's dumbing down some of the smartest people in the world.
I'm like, I don't feel that way at all. I want you to take and run with this so I can do the other things that are in my life. And I don't have to think about it because I know that you're doing it. Right? That's what I really want. Not just somebody to be nice. And so I think when you know your stats and you know my list price, sales price. So I think recently you guys are kind of like Austin list price, sales price seems like 95% is what you guys have been running at, about 95%. If you know you're 96% and you're 1% better than market, that's a value to me.
Yeah. The other thing that's really big and that I have found that people are impressed by is when I talk to them, when they ask how I'm going to market, and I talk to them and explain what reverse prospecting is, because a lot of agents don't discuss that with people. And a lot of agents don't know what it is. So when you actually, like, I'll bring a list of everyone that's looking at properties, you know, when I've done the comps, and I'll basically bring a list of one of my listings, and I'll even show them a printout of who I've called on the listing next door, let's say, so that they understand. And I explain the process. You may not be able to reach me from 9 to 11 because one of the things I'm doing is reverse prospecting.
I love that. That sounds like a script meeting I would
Yeah,
do.
imagine that. Probably, yeah.
If you call me and I answer the phone, you can terminate your contract because clearly I'm not doing the job you hired me to do.
Right. And so, but I explain reverse prospecting to them and they're blown away by that. And then I said, please, if you're speaking to anyone else, ask them what they're doing with reverse prospecting, because I know a lot of them are going to give the deer in the headlights look.
That's great.
Here's the thing I would say to you, Nadine. Never, guys, right now, when you go on a listing appointment or a buyer appointment, don't walk out of that appointment without a signed contract. Like,
Say that again, Kate, louder.
You've got to stop walking out of the appointment without a signed contract. So how many of you pre-qualify your appointments? Like you use some type of pre-qualifying script. Okay, on your pre-qualifying script, I don't know what script you're following, but if you ask them, do you plan to interview more than one agent for the job to sell your house? Does everybody ask that?
Yes.
You always want to ask, always ask, because if they're thinking about it, you may as well talk about it, right? And if they say to you, yes, always ask, have you already established your appointments? A lot of times they're not interviewing anybody else, but they're protecting themselves from you because we're scary as real estate agents. So they say yes. Have you already established those appointments? If they say no, just keep your appointment. But if they tell you, have you already established those appointments, and they say yes, ask them, will you interview all agents before you decide to hire the right agent for the job to sell your house? Right? Will you interview all agents? People that are systemic, there's so much to talk about today, but people that are systemic in thinking, they take a very right-wrong approach. And so somebody that's a systemic thinker, if you ask them, will you interview all agents? They're going to tell you, absolutely. They won't even miss a beat. If they're going to interview all agents, you want to be the last agent 1 hour after the one they already have. So let's say, Scott, I have an appointment with you Thursday at 4. I ask you, will you interview all agents? You say yes. You don't even miss a beat. And I'll say, when is your last appointment? You'll say, it's Friday at 10. And I'll say, Scott, why don't we do this? Let's go ahead and change our appointment. Let me come Friday at 11 o'clock. This week you've interviewed all agents. We're already in the mode of real estate, and I'm sure I can answer any questions that are lingering for you. Fair enough? If you're confident in what you say, guys, people will follow your lead. If you're confident, right? All right. If they hesitate, Shaun's a low systemic thinker too. Low systemic thinkers, we might say, you ask, will you interview all agents? We'll be like, yeah, I guess I would. They won't. They can be swayed in other ways. So if they miss a beat, you want to be the second one. So I'll ask, when's your first appointment? And they say it's Tuesday at, tonight at 7 o'clock. And I'll be like, I know 8's pushing it, and let's move it to 8 o'clock. This way you've already interviewed the first agent. You're already thinking about real estate, and you'll be able to compare one agent against another agent. Reality, I'm going to start working tomorrow to get your house sold. We don't want to miss time. And you want to be the second one. The first agent will never be done in an hour. So they can't close. And people like perceived choice. So if they can do one again, so I never ever leave without a contract. So
Hey,
worst
Kate, this
thing
is
that
why,
happens-
to your point, this is why it's important to listen to what's not being said as much as what is.
anytime somebody says, I need to think it over, it's probably that you overwhelmed their amygdala. And being with you was more chaos than clarity. So just say, let's put our heads together. Let's think out loud. Talk to me. What are you thinking about? Because the minute you leave, remember negative brain bias, that's going to escalate. They're not going to think about why they should hire you. They'll think about why they shouldn't hire you. Right? And so the worst case is, let's do this. Let's go ahead. We'll sign the contract. I'm going to go back to the office and I'm going to get to work because that's what I do. I drive traffic in properties to get them sold. If you wake up tomorrow and you decide not to list your house with me, we'll go ahead and we'll tear up the contract. What do you have to lose? But there's something that happens when somebody commits to you, especially if you go, so that I do block off immediately. My number one thing is, who are the people that are in my database that are the movers and shakers that I want to continually demonstrate to that I'm in this game. It is like my game. This is what I do. I'm in it every day. You're going to hear from me all the time because this is the game that I'm in. And I at least make those calls. So when I check in with you, I can tell you what I've already done. Now you kick in that thing of law of reciprocity. Dave and I go to dinner with a bunch of y'all. Dave buys dinner for all of us. How many of you are going to feel like now you owe Dave?
For sure.
We all do. That's law of reciprocity. You do something for somebody, it can be uneven exchange and they feel like they owe you something. That's strategy during the way that we think and process information to increase your sales.
Dave, what do you think about, with all of your neurolinguistic work, I'm fascinated with ChatGPT. Have you played around with that at all in terms of, because what I've found about ChatGPT is it makes you a better communicator because ChatGPT doesn't care. It will tell you everything. The good news is it will give you everything you ask for. The bad news is it'll give you everything you ask for. So you have to get really good about asking. And so I've got some agents that I'm doing a little experiment with on texting because I feel like our scripts are not always sharp and crisp. But if we can send out an appropriate text that does exactly what you said, asks a question, plants a seed, creates a potential of a problem, and does it strategically, and you can control, I'll give you an example in a second, but we were playing around with that, and now it's like, okay, we've got these unbelievable scripts for sending to our database that we just had to take a lot of time and prompt it correctly. Now we can pick and choose from these things. And now we got to look at this database where, as you say, who are my movers and shakers? Well, let's send a group of texts to those guys. And then let's take another one and let's send to another group. And then let's do another group. And then, because the reality is, if you've got, as you mentioned, 479 people in a database, I know that when people think that they say, no, I communicate with my database all the time, they're communicating with about 20% of it at best. And the rest of it, they're not including in that I communicate with my database all the time. And so we've got to find a way to maximize that. But I was curious on have you played around with the Chat GPT? Because
But I just wrote it down. Sometimes I'm like, I hardly have time to go to the restroom. So, like, that is probably the thing that I need to create in my life is more space to, to examine some of these things. So in all honesty, I've not played around with it, but I did write it down because I'm
let me
gonna.
let me give you an example, because this is good for everybody. So this is if you have to be very wordy in your prompting of it. So again, I'm doing an experiment with some agents, which the response to a great text is far greater than a response to a phone call, because if you lead it right, you get a response easy. So here's my prompt. It says ChatGPT, I need you to provide answers as if you are a top producing real estate agent or a communications expert for real estate agents. I want to communicate messages via text messaging to my database that elicits a response from as many people as possible. Please provide me with 12 different text message scripts that will promote reconnection with people I haven't communicated with directly in a while, and that will enhance my relationship with everyone who reads these texts. I would like these messages to be casual in style, yet professional and positive. I would love for some of the scripts to ask questions about their real estate plans for the new year, as we expect the market conditions to become more favorable to people choosing to make a move to a place that better suits their current lifestyle. Be sure to ask them, give me a call whenever it's convenient for you, so that I can answer any questions you may have and help you solve any of your real estate needs. That was my prompt.
Okay, so here's the thing, you guys, where was Shaun? Was he here or was he here? Was his prompt here or was it here?
Here.
It was here. I want you to hear it. He had such clear vision of what is the intention? Why am I doing the thing that I'm doing? And he took the time to think it through. All right, so what did you get back?
So I've got several here. So they're just of all that, and I want you to see how it nails it. It says, hi, Kate, Happy New Year. Hope you're having a fantastic start to 24. I'm just touching base to see if you have any real estate goals or questions this year. The market's looking favorable. Feel free to give me a call whenever it's convenient for you. I look forward to catching up. Next one says, hey, Kate, it's Shaun. As spring approaches, I'm reaching out to see if you're considering any real estate changes in line with the warmer weather. The market's showing some interesting trends. Let's chat about it whenever you're free. 3, hey, Kate, with the real estate market expected to shift favorably, I'm curious about your plans. Are you thinking of making a move or exploring new opportunities? I'm here to answer any questions you might have. Give me a call anytime. And they go on and on. But if you get a text like that, it's exactly what you're saying. But it took a lot. That prompt of mine was like a textbook of clarity to come up with 3 sentences that are zinging and perfect.
So here's the thing. We do track. I'm doing first quarter numbers. So in my world, first quarter ends tomorrow. What is tomorrow? Wednesday? On Thursday. So your lead measures for first quarter started 11:15 and the end 2:15, right? And I think this is a big mistake that I made in real estate for a long time, is working a calendar year. We're not in a calendar year ever, right? And so I'm reevaluating first quarter numbers. I will tell you that, and it could be the strength of the message, we get the less response from one-way contacts and the one-way contact to the nurture, to the lead, to the appointment. And like, there's a lot of variables. It could be the quality of the person following up afterwards and what the response looked like afterwards. And then how did they engage them after they, after they had the response. But I'm definitely like all about looking at that and seeing what that is. Listen, I'll send this information to Shaun. I just have like regular Facebook. Like, I'm not like, I don't know, the next level Facebook, right? So I can't like accept friends on Facebook because it's like filled up, right? But I made a commitment to help more people this year. And so I've been running these challenges. And so I ran one in December, I ran one in January, and I'm running another one in March. I don't think they're hard, but they have accountability around them. There's a little registration fee called $1.99 to register for it, but that's it, $1.99. It's going to run for 3 days. It's the next one I'm doing, and I open it up to anybody that wants to be in it. Doesn't matter who you are. Doesn't matter what your affiliation is. Doesn't matter if you know us or don't know us. And it's the week of March 11th, and it'll run Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. I will give you a script. I will work with you on the script because we jump on a Zoom in the morning. You have to go out in the world and you have to make 10 contacts using the script. At the end of the day, you're going to get an email to register your data for that day. So you have to confirm that you made calls. You have to confirm if you generated leads. If you don't, we charge you $25. And we do it for 3 days. At the end, we pull a winner out of
This is brilliant.
did all the things. And so the last one we did, the one we did in January, the winner won $750. And our people created 6 nurtures over 3 days, 3 30-day leads, and set 3 appointments and generated 2 referrals. I'm not good at everything, but I know scripts and I know how people think, and I love the game of sales. So if you feel stuck at all, jump into something like that. Like, count on yourself. It doesn't, you're responsible for whether the 25 leaves your account or doesn't leave your account. You know what I mean? But for most people, even if they lost all $75, they ended up with 6 nurtures that they didn't have before, or 3 30-day leads that they didn't have before. And I had one guy that's like, I'm giving all my money away because I've set 3 appointments in the first day, and I need to do the appointments before I go on vacation with my husband and my kid. And I'm like, okay, Dave. I mean, like, if you're out, you're out. But those kind of things, I will say that if you will commit yourself, I'm in this year right now. I said this the first year I was in Bold. I'm going to live 1 year feeling like I'm always going to vomit. Like, I'm just so nervous about what I'm doing that I always feel a little bit sick. That's when I met Shaun, honestly. And why I loved him right away is he just said, I trust you. I know people are saying things and you're a lot for this room, but I trust you. And that gave me a lot of, you were probably the first person in Keller Williams. And then I think it was Mark Willis that said, I just trust you. Just do your thing. Like, just do it. And if you will say 2024 is your year of more, but a little bit more anxiety, a little bit more nervousness, a little bit more sitting on the edge of your seat, a little bit more uncomfortableness, a little bit going outside of what you know you can do, a little bit more pushing the envelope, I promise you, you will have your best real estate year ever.
Agreed. You're
And you
awesome.
got great leaders behind you.
I love you, Kate Patulski.
Ditto. Listen.
Do you have time for a few ahas if anybody
I do because I have a real estate appointment, but it's not till 2 o'clock.
Well, and well, hopefully that's gonna be your next listing agent. So we'll see. Does anybody have any ahas you'd like to share from this today?
So I wrote something down just briefly when you were talking about because I'm a single agent, as a single agent trying to be everything to everybody and doing everything. And I wrote down, less red cape, more red carpet.
I love it.
Yeah. So that's
Nadine, a really good process. Like, I'm doing this right now because I get that whole thing, right? Like, I could do it all. It's all an option, right? I have a pad. I don't think you can see it, but I have a line down the middle, and one side says my lane and the other side says someone else's lane. I don't know who my someone else is right now, but I know that I'm spending time. I have my vision and I know where I'm going. And so when I'm in an activity, I will stop and say, is this my lane or is it somebody else's lane? Is it in my boundaries or should it be in somebody else's? And so I've got a really good list right now of what I need from my next 2. Right? An idea without a format to carry it out just stays an idea. So put frame around it, right? So create context. Yeah,
Thank you.
you are so welcome.
Nadine's awesome.
Anyone else? Vicky.
Questions are good if you have them because it says I'm thinking.
Kate, I just have a comment, and this was amazing, and I appreciate this so much. What I took away is be clear on your identity and get really clear and find out what your vision is, and then just with your database follow up daily and discuss the market, just keep moving.
Yeah, and Vicky, a really easy thing too in that is if you guys write down 2 words, intention and attention. Everything that you go into, ask yourself, what is my intention? Right? And then notice where you have your attention. So even if I'm, before I got on the call today, what is the intention? Going into the listing appointment, what is my intention when the day ends? My marriage is thriving because I've gotten really clear on what is my intention. Because it's really easy just to move around the house and just go from one thing to the next thing to the next thing, right? But what is my intention? And then align your attention, your life will change.
Perfect. Be specific, I think, right?
Be specific. Your brain loves specifics, and the more specific you are with yourself, the more specific you will be with the consumer. And when you're specific with the consumer, it increases consumer confidence. So it reduces cortisol in the brain of the consumer when you're specific, when they know what's going to happen.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Are more than welcome.
Michelle.
Yes, the action equals mindset. Are they in alignment? If you do that, yeah, you've got the answer to 100% of your questions all the time.
Yeah, agreed. Again, it's just like, you have 2 million bits of data coming at your brain. You really only process 126 bits of that data, right? Not everything matters equally. And I don't think, Shaun, there is a right action and a wrong action. I think if I believe in my action, I'm going to get a result.
That's right. That's right. I mean, look,
Eric would say MREA is just a guideline.
hey, listen, I've said for years, I mean, if you look at some of the most successful people in our business, they're not particularly bright and they're not particularly good looking. They just go do stuff, and they do it with confidence of some sort, and they make shit happen.
There was this guy in our market when I lived in New York, and he was little, like smaller than a Napoleon. I mean, he was little. He looked like nothing. And we're like, I'm afraid of this guy. He's not going to do anything. Oh my God. He got super focused on what he was doing. And before you knew it, we're like, where did he come from? Like, he has no stature. He has no presence, but he believed in what he was doing. He was consistent. And he built a huge, thriving business.
That's all it takes.
That's all it takes. That's all it takes. And I will say one other thing. I can do it because it's habituated in my brain. I'm used to working alone. I'm used to inspiring myself and motivating myself. And I'm very locked into a schedule. I'm on Zooms and phone 8 hours almost every single day. Stop isolating. It's convenient to stay at home, but it doesn't mean you're going to be successful at home. Get back to your market center. Get dressed in the morning. Go to the office. If people in your office are inspiring, find a group of inspiring people that are, that are in your area and say, let's spend time together. Let's lead generate together. Let's lead follow up together. You will start improving your performance just from being around other people. We have to all get past that stage of COVID where we just thought that isolation was the answer to everything. It's not. It's making us awkward around other people. Right? We're meant to connect and to thrive.
Yes, we are. Well, this is a great connection for this group of people. This is we've committed to doing this monthly for our top producers in these 3 offices and our ALC members, and we've got some amazing people. So I really appreciate you taking the time to visit with us today because you've changed a lot of people's perspectives. And my guess is that you're going to change their life just from the time you spent with them today. So thank you.
Look, we're all in this game together, right? We are all in it together. All right,
Yeah.
if I can do anything for you guys moving forward, you can always shoot me an email. It's just my name, Patulski@gmail.com. I got it back in the day when nobody was fighting for that name. So I'm really responsive. And like I said, I really do believe the more we work together, the more we grow together, the more we influence the world, the more impact we make. It's a ripple effect.
Yeah. And
Fair
just to wrap it all up real quick, I'm going to make sure that I get all of you guys those texts that Shaun was talking about and the link for Kate's challenge for the month of March. That way, any of you guys who would like to participate in that can do it. I appreciate y'all for being here today. Thank you, Kate. Thank you, Shaun. Y'all have an amazing day, and we'll see you back in the
Guys,
market
have a good
center
day.
with
Thank
your
you
community
so
soon.
much.
Talk to y'all later.
Thank you so
Bye.
much.
Thank
Bye.
you. This was amazing.